Namam Vishnupada Kishapisa Buddhale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Sasvati Neme Govani Pachayane Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschatari Shatarine Vanchakapa Trivasha Kripasinmevata Padittanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so first of all, thank you so much for coming, for showing an interest on this topic of Prajalpa. That's very encouraging. I was wondering how many people will attend. So, the full title is Prajalpa, It Will Destroy This Movement. And this is actually a statement by Prabhupada. And the way I understand it is that it is not a prediction, it will destroy this movement, but it is more like a warning, right? Yes, because let us remember that actually the dangers for ISKCON is not coming from outside, but it is coming from inside. And Prajalpa is definitely one of the root causes of all kinds of troubles. So, as we were saying, the main dangers come from within our society, not from outside. Actually, the attacks from outside, they usually unite devotees in preaching. But from inside, this disunites, this splits, right? Yes. So some little Shastric references. We have Nectar of Instruction, verse number 2. Atya Prayasascha Prajalpa Niyamagaha. So Rupa Goswami tells us that our devotional service can be spoiled if we become too entangled in talking unnecessarily about mundane subject matters. And then we also have verse number 1, Vacho Vegamana Sakura Vegam. So we have to learn to tolerate the urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals, and control the urge to speak, the mind's demands, actions of anger, and so on. So yes, the importance of controlling the tongue, we know this, we have heard about this. And tongue, of course, has two tendencies, two activities: to eat, so overeating is also very detrimental. In fact, we can say when we overeat, this leads to toxins in the gross body. And the other function of the tongue, to talk unnecessarily about mundane things, to talk nonsense, this creates toxins in the subtle body. Yes. Actually, we can understand the holy name Krishna Katha carries something like an echo, a dhvani. And what switches on the mundane mind and destroys this echo is mundane talk, Prajalpa. So very detrimental to spiritual life. Yeah, so we have heard about the dangers of Prajalpa so many times, and yet we don't realize how much of our daily talk falls into this category. Yes, we don't even realize. So this session is simply meant to make us a little more conscious. Yes, because hearing is always the first step. Like Prabhupada was saying, in order to become Krishna conscious, we have to become conscious first. So in order to stop this habit of engaging in Prajalpa, we first have to hear about it, how detrimental it is, and how many kinds of Prajalpas are there, right? And Prabhupada has really emphasized that this Prajalpa talking is very detrimental. In Kurma Prabhu's book, The Transcendental Adventure, there's 2 nice episodes with, what was his name? Upananda. Upananda had this tendency to gossip, and on one of these occasions, Upananda was talking in the kitchen to somebody who just came from India, and they were telling the latest news. Oh, did you hear this devotee, that devotee? So Prabhupada was in the next room and heard it. And he got so angry. He called Upananda in. What are you doing? So talking nonsense, gossip. Upananda was saying, is talking about other devotees gossip? Prabhupada, yes. This devotee, that devotee, life is short. Don't waste your time. You know, he was very heavy. And then another time also with Upananda, he was gossiping. Prabhupada heard it and got very angry. And that's when he said, Prajalpa, this will destroy this movement. This was actually in Australia in connection with Upananda. And then there is also another humorous situation when the telex machine came out. This is, of course, completely outdated technology today. So telex was before the fax machine was telex. So, and devotees in America had this telex machine, and they were showing it to Prabhupada, and oh, look how amazing it is. Here we put the news in, and same time it comes out on the other side of the world. So Prabhupada, you know, he did like to check out new technology. He was, oh yes, okay, good, very nice. So, and then the devotees asked him, oh, maybe Prabhupada, maybe every temple in the world should have a telex machine. And Prabhupada said, no. If every temple in the world has one, you will talk Prajalpa all over the world. That was Prabhupada's answer, you know. So sometimes I'm wondering what would Prabhupada say about internet and Facebook and all these things, you know. Because, yeah, this is the point. Social media, internet, this really facilitates nonsense talk, like anything. Oh my God. This is one reason why, indeed, I live without a phone. I travel all over the world, but I refuse to have a phone. Just computer. If I have to talk to people, Skype, no phone. I don't want to be bombarded with all this WhatsApp and this and that. Of course, there's some tiny little benefit there, but the negative effect is by far outweighing the positive. By far. Such a distraction, so much nonsense talk, you know, and criticism, and oh my God, you know. Yeah, so this is very detrimental, you know, yes. Yeah, so now, in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's book, Bhakti-Loka, in the chapter 6 Faults That Destroy Bhakti, there Bhaktivinoda Thakur goes through all different kinds of Prajalpa. And I find this very helpful. I have presented this in different parts of the world. And yeah, a helpful topic. So I would like to briefly go through this with you and then end with a couple little Vaishnav etiquette rules. And then I simply hope there is some questions, a little bit of discussion, since it is a very practical topic that is relevant to everybody. So yes, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he starts by saying that today people are getting more and more godless. So, and I mean Bhaktivinoda Thakur, this is a couple of 100 years ago or something. So even then already people were getting more and more godless. So, and therefore the godless talk also increases, right? Naturally. So that's why this Prajalpa is increasing, and it is a great impediment in devotional service. So, and we will discover Prabhu, if you look for a chair, maybe just go to the neighbors and pinch one, if there is one free. Okay. Yeah, so we will discover how actually Prajalpa often has its roots in envy. This is also one of my favorite topics, envy, how it manifests towards seniors equals juniors, and. So we will see that all these different kinds of Prajalpa have their roots in envy, and that makes them even more poisonous, you know, because the consciousness actually travels on sound vibration. So if a person is envious and then makes all these remarks and so then our heart gets poisoned with that envy. You see? Yes, it's all very subtle there. You know? Yeah, so the first category of Prajalpa, according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, is simply useless talk. So, and he classifies novels in that, and believe it or not, even newspaper. Of course, newspaper is again outdated. Who reads the newspaper these days? You know, it's all on internet. But yeah, interestingly, the worldly news, even I found some interesting statements also of Prabhupada where he was not so fond, you know, that devotees get absorbed in news and especially discussing them and all that. So, and there, in that regard, I want to share one nice little story where Prabhupada was traveling on the plane. And on the plane, they were distributing the Time magazine. And Prabhupada, out of interest, he was saying, all right, let me have a look at this Time magazine. And he was flicking through it. Time magazine is known to be a socially critical and good magazine, right? Tomorrow I'll be in a bigger place. Probably too big, but anyway. Yes, just come up here. There's one chair here. Or here some devotees are sitting on the cooling ground, which is also not bad for a hot day. So yeah, just move up somehow. Let everybody come and hear about Prajalpa. Yeah, so let me continue with my story. So Prabhupada was looking at this Time magazine, and then he gave it back to the devotees, saying, actually, devotees should not really read this. And then Prabhupada said, it makes this world look so real. Right? That was Prabhupada's comment. It makes this world look so real. So that's actually why for devotees it is not advised to get too absorbed in all the worldly news. Right? Because it makes this world look so real. Then people think, you know, the real issues of life is what happens here, what happens in Russia, what happens in America, and, you know. But no, you know, this is all the crazy circus of material life and, you know, in this world. So it makes this world look so real, you know, if we get absorbed in this. But of course, we have to qualify it a little bit and say, well, for our service, we may just need to know a little bit what's going on in the world, right? For preaching, for our service, for traveling. But I remember from my own life, I only started looking at the news when, you know, how long is that ago? 2008 or something, the war in Ukraine started. Not now the heavy one, but before the lighter one. Because I've been preaching in Ukraine, so people were saying, God, you're going to Ukraine, there's war. So I thought, all right, let me better have a look at the news, what's happening there, you know. But yeah, I can clearly understand that my life was in many ways my consciousness was better before I was always looking at the news, you know. Yes, it distracts, it occupies some space there in your mind, which could be filled with Krishna consciousness. And on the absolute platform at the moment of death, who cares what happens in which country? You know, it's all part of a very temporary situation here. Yeah, so much about the, what was the first one? The useless talk. So let's move on to the arguments. That's another category of Prajalpa. Simply arguing over petty things very often, you know. Oh, in married life, going on like anything. Very often it is also a false ego battle going on there. Who is right, who is wrong? Just see, I told you, and all these things. And yeah, Bhaktivinoda Thakur calls it wasting the mind's strength. We are wasting the mind's power, you know, with all these arguments. And even philosophical arguments, also no need. Again, false ego battle, you know. And there we can see arguments arise from envy, you know, because we want to be right, we want to put others down, we want to establish our superior position. This is root causes envy. I mean, false ego, envy, they're good friends. You know, they like to move around together. So, yeah, envy, false ego, this is basically the main root cause of all these arguments in Prajalpa, you know. Yes, it arises from envy, pride, foolishness, or attachment and aversion to sense gratification. So quarrelsome people, you know, they're often intoxicated by useless arguments. And as a devotee, we should keep out of this, you know, not to get involved. But yeah, the false ego is provoked, and then we have to say something back. And you know. So next one is gossip, you know, meaning talking about others without good reason. And I mean, how often do we do that? Just talking about this person, and or have you heard already, and that person, and you know, just talking, discussing other people's character, right? So that often also goes back to envy, that we want to put them down. Of course, if we glorify devotees, that's not gossip, right? If we talk, you know, nice things about devotees, that's very uplifting. But all this negative talk, you know, it is simply magnifying negativity and pollutes the consciousness, and it's not uplifting to anybody, you know. So no need. Yeah, usually we talk about other people's character because, again, we want to establish our own reputation, that we are better. Again, goes back to envy, you know. And it cultivates pride and is very destructive, negative energy, hatred even, negative feelings, you know. So, yeah, not very uplifting at all. So, and of course, when all material activities are related to devotional life, and if we are in a position of discussing a certain person's position or something, if it is our service to deal with other devotees and manage them or guide them, so then of course we may have to speak about others. But that is in a well-wishing mood of trying to serve them and uplift them, and not just, you know, talking about others, you know. So that's a different category, right? So of course, gurus, sadhus, they talk, you know, about their disciples, or they may even talk about the materialists to instruct the devotees, you know, that we talk. I mean, Prabhupada's so heavy, fools and rascals, and asses and monkeys, donkeys, and whatnot, So, yeah, so Prabhupada very heavy there, but that is for preaching purposes, So, yeah, also this gossip, just talking, breaking news to others about other devotees, there again is the false ego in play, because we want to be the first one who gives the news, right? Yeah, it's all pretty subtle, but have you heard? You haven't heard? Well, I know, and I'm the one who tells you, so it's all there, so yes. Yes, and then we have debating. Interestingly, Bhaktivinoda Thakur categorizes debating under Prajalpa, because again, what is happening there? We try to win the debate, false ego battle. There's no humble inquiry to find out the absolute truth, but no, we want to win the battle and get our point across. We are not even interested in hearing others. Debating is simply an ego battle. We are not inquiring in humility, but we want to get our point across. Very often we are not even interested to hear the other person's arguments. Whatever people say, this often happens over internet. That a person says something about us and we feel something negative and we feel like, I have to respond to this. If I don't answer, then everybody thinks this is true, right? So then we respond, and then the other person, twists it around, makes a weapon out of it, shoots it back at us, right? So and then again we think, I have to say something about this, and there is no end to it. It goes on and on and on. Useless waste of time, so contaminating, right? Yeah, you feel all this agitation and anger building up. The mind is disturbed. You can't stop thinking about it. The whole discussion goes in circles in the mind. You can't chant anymore. Terrible. Whenever we have the situation that something is going around and around and around in our mind, it's always a sign of the false ego taking us for a ride. Yes. And this very commonly happens in these debates, And there's no end to it, no conclusion. It just goes on and on and on. And this really has the power to split communities. I have seen this during pandemic. For example, this topic of vaccination. I mean, some communities experienced a whole split, and relationships were damaged over whether to get vaccinated or not. My God, this is everybody's personal decision. Why talking about this? This is Prajalpa, nothing else. And that's a good example, of what Prabhupada was warning us, that this Prajalpa will destroy this movement, Yeah, I know some communities in Europe, they suffered immensely under this discussions, and still, even 2 years afterwards, still the relationships are not repaired. There's still this bitterness and anger there, and Or also here with the war in Ukraine, Russia, this also is in some communities between Russian and Ukrainian devotees. There are all these discussions and debates going on, whose fault it is and who's behind the war. And terrible, terrible, yes. Yeah, it's Prajalpa, let's be clear on this, Yeah, really splits the communities, So then another interesting one, fault finding. Yes. How often do we do this? First of all, when we find faults in others, very often we are actually projecting our own bad habits onto the others, right? That's why we have the saying, when we point the finger, then 3 fingers are pointing at us back. and in psychology you call it projecting, that we project our own problems and we see them in others. We think, even with envy, we always think others are envious of me, but that maybe I am envious. No, of course not. Everybody else is envious of me, like that. Yeah, so this fault finding is a very detrimental thing, and again, we put others down. We try to minimize their importance in order to establish our superiority. Again, it's envy behind it. Yes, that's what it is, And then the next one, speaking falsehoods, fake news. Oh my God, it's going on massively out there in the secular world. So it's almost some people's occupation, just to launch some fake news. Yes. It creates such disturbance, misunderstandings, conflicts, quarrels, hatred. Sometimes these things also enter our ISKCON society, that people just come up with all kinds of speculations and falsehoods and spread them, and to talk bad about somebody and pull them down and all this, very, very disturbing, And then blaspheming devotees. Yes, as we know, this is the first offense to chanting the holy name, right? And interestingly, our previous Acharya, Sridhar Swami, he makes this statement, whether it is true or not, narrating the faults of a Vaishnava constitutes blasphemy. So this is something which we often tend to forget, right? We think, well, if it's true that a devotee has these and these faults, so why can't I say it? Why can't we speak the truth? Freedom of speech, what's happening? Why can't we say these things? We may say, but no, if we reflect and look in our heart, we can actually see that this, this mood of wanting to point out the fault of another, again, comes from envy, because we want to diminish his or her importance and put them down and establish our superiority. And these things sneak in a very subtle way. Let's imagine one example. There was a traveling preacher visiting. He was leading a kirtan. Then a friend of ours says to us, "Oh, that was a nice kirtan, wasn't it?" And then we say, "Yeah, it was all right, but, his Madanga playing was not so good, or I didn't like the melody he was singing." So even if it's true that the Madanga playing was not so good, but just that the fact that we have this urge of stating it, it shows envy. Yes. In other words, we want to say, if I had led the kirtan, I would have chosen a nicer tune, and my Madanga playing is better anyway. And so even if it's all true, still, the fact that we want to point it out shows envy. So this is a thing which we often neglect, and we are not even aware of it, right? Isn't it? Yes. So, after this session, you can try and observe yourself a bit more, and maybe you catch yourself, that you're making such kind of comments just to put a person down and so on, and then we realize, oh yes, this is Prajalpa, this is sign of envy actually, Yes. So, and then the last one is worldly talk, just talking about all different things. So unless it is in connection with devotional life or preaching, like subjects like archaeology or biology, astrology, so all right, they have some, connection, some importance maybe for preaching. But if we just talk, about all kinds of things there, which is some mundane knowledge. If it is not related to preaching or serving, then this is also worldly talk. It also fits into Prajalpa, and often it comes again from pride. We want to show off what we all know and how expert we are in all these fields, and. Yeah, so these are the main categories of Prajalpa which Bhaktivinoda Thakur is giving. So I just want to conclude by mentioning a few little aspects of Vaishnav etiquette. Because, I guess at the moment there's all kinds of things going on in ISKCON worldwide and so on, and that often leads again to Prajalpa, in a sense that actually we easily get involved in things which are happening on a higher level. So the Vaishnav etiquette actually says that if there is a disagreement or some conflict on a higher level, it is not our position to pass judgments or take sides. Right? But how often do we do this? We do it all the time, But it's beyond our circle of influence. We don't know what is all going on there on a higher level because it's beyond us. So we should not stick our nose in it, pass judgments, discuss it, who is at fault and on which side we are or what. This is all against Vaishnav etiquette. Because guaranteed we commit offenses, we misjudge things because we don't know what is happening up there. And whether we know or not know, it will not make any difference. It's outside of our circle of influence. Yes. And Vaishnav etiquette is trying to protect us from committing offenses and creating negativity and all this. Because all this negative talk, it is simply magnifying negativity. Yes, it is magnifying negativity. And it pollutes everybody's consciousness. And it's not beneficial for anybody. So we should keep away from this. And the other thing is also that we are not meant to pass judgments on persons or situations without hearing everybody involved. This is also something we often do. We pass judgments simply based on rumors, on Prajalpa. What he, she says about this, that person. So then we pass judgments on that person. But actually, to get a clear understanding of a situation, we have to talk to everybody involved. That's a system in the material world. If there is some court case, what takes the longest is to hear all the witnesses, all the people who were involved. That takes the longest. But very often what we do is we don't take the time and energy to actually hear people. And we simply pass judgments, just hearing one side or something, And then we can easily create offenses. We misjudge a situation. And especially if we do this towards juniors, it can be very discouraging for a young devotee if their seniors pass judgments on them just by hearing from other people and not even talking to that person. Yes. So these things are so elementary, but yet we often don't observe them, and then it creates negativity and misunderstandings and conflicts and all this. Yeah, so concluding, we can say, that Prajalpa actually destroys our faith in the process of devotional service. That's such a poisonous thing. By hearing all these negative talks and worldly things, it simply weakens our faith. And that's why it is so detrimental. Creates misunderstandings, conflicts, disharmony increases envy, hatred, aggressions, and. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was saying, he compared faith in devotional life to a newborn baby girl. Because baby girls are usually a little, as a rule, they're a little weaker than baby boys. So that's why the faith is compared to a newborn baby girl. So newborn baby girl needs all protection, all nourishment. You know, we should never undermine a devotee's faith by talking badly about somebody else, or especially about their guru or something. Oh, it's so detrimental, you know. We have to do everything to nourish and protect each other's faith. And Prajalpa is really destroying a devotee's faith. And also Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, faith is like the currency with which we purchase Krishna. So faith is very, very important. You know, if we have unflinching faith in Prabhupada, in Krishna, in devotional life, you know, then we can deal with any calamity, any problem we may face, any calamity that comes in ISKCON. If we have faith in Prabhupada, faith in Krishna, it will not shake us. It will not, you know. So faith is such an important thing, you know. So, and by avoiding the pitfalls of getting caught up in Prajalpa, we protect our own spiritual life by not committing offenses to others, and also, you know, by endeavoring to remove this destructive tendency from our heart. We will enable our bhakti ladder to grow, and also our communities, you know, to thrive and flourish. So it's well worthwhile making an effort. So maybe one thing I didn't mention in your sheets, I added it afterwards on my sheets. Whenever I talk about envy, false ego, Prajalpa fits into that. Whenever we want to transform certain patterns of behaviors, I like to give 5 steps which are very practical and which really work. I apply them in my own life, and it is hard work, but it leads to success. So it works for any transformational internal work. So step number 1 is always hearing about the topic. That's why I chose this topic for the ILS, that we hear, because the hearing wakes us up from our unconsciousness, from our sleep, you know, that we hear. So then step number 2, after hearing, we hopefully develop a desire to do something about it. That we say to ourselves, okay, I better do some internal work here to, you know, uproot my envy and my false ego patterns of behaviors and my habits and attraction to talk Prajalpa. So the desire should come after the hearing. So then, step number 3, we have to be introspective and honest. We have to reflect. This reflection and introspection has to be almost like our second nature, that we are mindfully looking, why did I say this? Why did I do this? What is my motive here? Or whenever we had some unpleasant exchange, what actually took place here? How did I contribute to this? Not just blaming others, you know, but that we reflect what took place here, you know? Yes. Without this reflection and introspection, we actually cannot make advancement. Yes. Because the process of bhakti is internal. We want to transform our heart so that bhakti can grow there. And for that to take place, we have to reflect and do some introspection. Right? So then, 4th step. We catch ourselves doing the wrong thing. Right? We catch ourselves doing the wrong thing. that, again, I couldn't shut up. I had to make that remark, or I had to, be the one who breaks the news and talks bad about others, and. So we catch ourselves doing the wrong thing. And that is already progress, because for so many years we were doing the wrong thing and we didn't even notice. So now we realize, here we go again. I just couldn't help myself, and, right? So now let me ask you, what's the next step after catching yourself doing the wrong thing? Repentance. We lament, we cry out to Krishna. Yes, Lord Nrsingadev, here in Mayapur. We have to invite him to do our heart surgery here with the sharp nails. Yes, that's the only saving grace. We have to cry out to Krishna and repent and beg him to uproot this. Because as we said, it stems from envy, false ego. This is so subtle, so deep-rooted. It's like a Hiranyakashipu in our heart. So we, out of our own strength, just making a resolution, I'm just not going to talk Prajalpa anymore. This will not help much, because at the next opportunity we will do it again. So we have to turn to Krishna and cry out. Yes. Gaur Govinda Maharaj was saying an ISKCON temple is like a crying school where we have to learn to cry out to Krishna. So that's what it's all about. So, and if we do these last 3 steps, we are introspective and honest. We catch ourselves doing the wrong thing. We cry out to Krishna. If we do these last steps again and again and again, then sooner or later we get to the 6th step. We catch ourselves doing the right thing. And it really works. Some opportunity will come up, some situation in our life, and we see, this time I could just let it go. I didn't have to make that remark. I didn't have to put other people down and gossip about this person, that person. I could just let it go by. But before, 2 weeks earlier, I probably would have responded differently. Right? So, and when we agree to this internal work of introspection and honesty, catching ourselves doing the wrong thing, crying out to Krishna, when we agree to do this internal work, that's when we actually make progress. Yes, yes. So progress in Krishna consciousness is not some external thing of getting up on the ladder of hierarchy there or something, but it's all about the heart, how much internal work we do. Yes. So before I open for questions, I do want to very quickly bring your attention to these books I published, because they are in some ways related to it. So first of all, here we have Spiritual Culture, Krishna's Divine System. This is targeting more on the gender confusions. Are men and women equal? No, they are not, according to Krishna's opinion. They're very different, even though we women are superior in many ways. Our feminine Shakti, very powerful, but we are meant to learn how to use it to be the auspicious source of energy to the men around us and not compete. This is the terrible thing that's going on today, that we women compete because of this equality propaganda, and that weakens the men. Yes, because they need that feminine energy to be empowered. Highly interesting, and it's all based on Bhagavatam, what Prabhupada says in the Bhagavatam. It is used also as a handbook for brahmachari training, because the men have to know how to answer all these questions. There's so many heavy statements in the Bhagavatam about women. So we have to know how to present it in a palatable way, rather than thinking how we can change Prabhupada's books or something. No, we have to know the answers. Are women less intelligent? And so I'm touching upon all these topics. So, and then we have sheltering relationships. That's about the importance of a mentor, having a mentor, a counselor. That just having a Diksha Guru, not enough guidance. And in regards to, reforming our habits, We need some well-wishing, trusting friend who taps us on the shoulder and says, hey, stop talking nonsense here, and this is your envy, and. So after you read this book, you will be convinced that without having a mentor and eventually becoming one to others, we cannot make advancement. And in this book is also a chapter on envy, how envy manifests towards seniors equals juniors, because that blocks us the most from accepting shelter from a senior and giving shelter to a junior if we are envious. And then we have the false ego, our constant companion and troublemaker. I think the title speaks for itself. Very insightful. It has helped me a lot to detect how my false ego gets into my way. So maybe it helps you too. And there's also a chapter on chanting the holy name in it, which is very instrumental in dissolving the false ego, but we have to chant in the right quality of feeling. And last but not least, entering the Grihastha ashram, how to do it, how better not to do it. Yes. Very helpful for young people who are not married yet, for parents, for mentors, for Bhakti Vriksha leaders, matchmakers, and. Because especially here in India, the main emphasis is always on caste and on finances, financial considerations. Terrible. Caste, my God, I thought that Mahaprabhu and Prabhupada established that the birth doesn't say much. It's the qualities, right? Yes. And we simply take the caste back to the Varnas. And then we look at the Varnas, not the caste. Yes. And finances, all right, it's one consideration. But there's so many more devotional levels of compatibility which are unknown here in India, really. Yes. So if you want to get any books, I will have a little book table there, and I also have a store in the ILS store area there. Maybe I'll quickly say the price. This one $350, this one also $350, and the other one $300 each. So the whole set, 1,300 rupees. And you get actually 4 seminars, because each book is a course which I'm also giving. And there you get it as book form. You can even read it, take some notes, and give the course. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's all there. Right? Yes. So let me see, do we have any questions about Prajalpa? Yes, we start here.
Very inspiring and very pertinent, necessary for, at least for myself. So my question is, there are certain situations which apparently make us believe that certain way we can break this principle. Like, say for example, when there is some kind of issues which are real, which we face, which we do face, and as aspiring leaders or as leaders, we have to address them. We can't just ignore them and push them under the carpet. We have to talk about it. And these issues involve persons, and you can't just not talk about persons and just only. I mean, sometimes it's not possible that way. And that's one situation. And another situation is sometimes when you hang around with friends and like-minded people, you engage in small talk or some fun. You can't just be always grave and philosophical.
Yes.
So when there's that small talk and some like fun and kind of jolly atmosphere, you talk about different things, and then that tends to go to the side of Prajalpa. So in these two situations, how do we develop the intelligence to know where do we draw the line?
Yes. I mean, in connection with your first question, if there's issues of concern and they concern people, so we talk to people privately, doesn't have to be broadcasted and churned with people who are not even a part of this whole thing. So in one-to-one discussions, we can pacify people's minds, or even young devotees hear about different things. So then we can also preach to them in general terms without getting into details, what happened and this and that. But just to say, Bhagavatam is full of great souls falling down and it's Kali Yuga and, so much negative contaminations there in the air and so, but Prabhupada is there, Krishna is there, so, so we can uplift people's minds, without churning all the details, Yes. So I personally don't really see such a problem in this. And if there's a particular person who is more involved and concerned, so then we talk to them one-on-one, but also we keep things a bit confidential. That's also a big issue, that we find it very difficult to keep things confidential. And then we talk to this person, that person, and we break the news. And again, it's false ego. We want to be the one who knows more than the others and who, present it to them and all this, So on other things like, a little bit of small talk we may have to do initially just to connect with people, especially to non-devotees also. But I mean, amongst practicing devotees, we can connect with each other by talking about our service and inquiring, how's your preaching going and this and that. I mean, why talking about some nonsense things, That is also a kind of almost small talk, but at least it is connected with Krishna consciousness and our service and some upcoming devotional events or whatever. I mean, there are so many lighter topics to talk about, I mean, I find myself in that situation all the time, when you meet people there on my book table at my store, so I have to ask them, where are you from again? Where did I meet you? And, and I connect with people, but I hope it doesn't fall into the category of Prajalpa, and especially this negative talk, this negative talk is so destructive, We can talk nice things about others. Why don't we do that more, About nice lectures we heard, nice kirtans we attended, nice devotees, how they serve nicely and dedicate themselves. So let's talk nice things, right? Yes.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Mother, for touching on this very important topic. I was just thinking while during the discussion, you made a point about that debate on the vaccination. So there my mind began churning on. It seems there's an inherent...
We are not going to start.
Not about that, but in terms of there's an inherent nature that people want to create lobby or create a group in terms of if I have a particular opinion and others differ, and then it has to be a partition. There has to be two groups and the lobbying starts for it. Even if you try to choose to have a neutral stand, then there is a lot of peer pressure happens, there's a lot of prajalpa happens. So here my question is about the mentality or the psychology of such individuals who, being in the devotional circles, yet have this mindset of lobbying people to take their sides, which apparently externally seems a highly political motivated move where they want to show their strength, that we have more numbers, you're lesser in numbers, which means
exactly.
we are correct.
Yes.
So something you would like to speak about this mentality and psychology?
Well, our false ego, our constant companion and troublemaker, that's what it boils down to, Yes. I mean, hearing this, I remember one thing that really impressed me. I know two Maharajas, which I won't mention their names, but they have so different approaches to community development. so different, but yet they're the best of friends. You know? And why, why can they be the best of friends? Because they're beyond this false ego mentality of proving to the other person that their approach is better. Right? Then there's mutual respect there, you know, and respecting each other's contributions without trying to establish that my approach is better. And usually for us, very difficult. You know, we like to be friends with people who have the same approach, right? That's the false ego, you know, rather than just, respecting each other's contributions, even though they are very different from our own contribution. And not, yes. Yeah, I mean, this lobbying behind it is that we want to increase our power over people. That we may be the more senior person there, and if I get all of them in my camp here, you know, it's just a whole ego thing, you know. Yes.
Just a follow to that. So if somebody has decided to take a neutral stand and he is getting dragged on either side, some words of wisdom for that person, that continue on with your bhakti, don't get dragged into it. Either way you take it, the false ego gonna, your false ego gonna kind of build up either on the side. So anything on that side, if you take a neutral stand.
So what? If you take a
somebody
neutral
decides, doesn't want to be part of this partition ideology.
Yes.
I stand on my feet. This is what I believe.
Yes.
Let's say vaccination. Take it or not, that's my personal choice. Why to talk about it? You know. Similarly, if there is something has happened in the community with some devotee, so be it. That's a responsibility of the mentor. Any situation for that reason. Let me have my own opinion. Let me continue with my life.
Exactly.
I have not come to ISKCON to talk about others or make a position on something external to me.
Yes.
So on something on that, what's the wisdom for such a person to support that? Go on. Don't get. Sometimes the worry arises. Oh, I'll be left alone. I don't have friends because now all friends have taken a side. All that thought process goes into the community.
Yeah, I mean, in regards to, let's go back to the vaccination example. People were trying to pull me into this too. But I just refuse. And I just say to people, it's a personal decision. It's like taking antibiotics or not, or doing chemo or not. I mean, it's each and every person's individual decision. It's none of anybody else's business what people do if they get vaccinated or not. But there's also this mentality behind it. Oh, I have to save everybody, from going over the cliff there, and then all these conspiracy theories, and it's just, it's simply Prajalpa, what to do, But I don't know. I just think we have to stop it, nip it in the bud, and just tell people, hey, this is Prajalpa, so, stop it. Don't talk about it. What for? What for? It's mundane talk, and everybody's got the right to decide for themselves without being judged, and, I mean, I heard even in marriages, that was splitting the marriages. Oh, my husband gets vaccinated. How can he, Yes, I mean, my God. It's ridiculous, actually. It really is, Yes. Anything from the ladies' side, maybe, for a change? There in the back.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you. I was wondering if you could give some tips on how to respond if we're put in circumstances where senior devotees are engaging in Prajalpa, or we're serving, senior devotees.
Okay. Well, I mean, let's remember the Vaishnava etiquette, that it is not our position to somehow pass judgments on seniors or correct them or point things out to them or something. It is not our business, So the proper way to act is that either we simply avoid, the situation, we just keep a distance, or when this comes up, then just to say, oh, sorry, Prabhu, sorry, Mataji, I have some other things to do and I'm actually not so interested in this topic. Or if it is really strongly there, then we may have to go to their authority. That's actually the Vaishnava etiquette. If we, see some inappropriate behavior in seniors, it's not our position to approach them with this and confront them, but we should go to their senior and report it, and let them decide whether this is, serious enough to address, or whether maybe it's our imagination, can also be, So that's the Vaishnava etiquette. We go to their senior, their authority, their guru, their mentor, whoever, and we simply report it, that this is disturbing, and then they can point it out. Right. Anything else? Yes?
So they do not consider whether the place is right, the person is right, the situation is right. Just very straightforward. So we've seen two kinds of devotees. So sometimes devotees, they're very straightforward. So whatever they think,
straightforward is something else. I'm pretty straightforward.
I mean to say, whatever they have in the mind, just speak out. They do not see whether it is the right place, right time, right person, right situation. And sometimes there are devotees, they feel something bad about it. They just do not express. They keep it within, so that others may not misunderstand, or it may not be Prajalpa. And it keeps growing within. It creates problem, and then all of a sudden it just bursts out in a very ugly form.
Okay.
So how both these devotees, they can be more
So the
stable?
first case of devotees just saying anything that comes into their mind, well, we have to learn to control the tongue. Yes. We have to control our speech a bit and be a little mindful and conscious what we say to whom and all this, So it is a matter of learning to control one's speech, So that has to be pointed out to that person, and like that. And the other scenario where people keep it within, this may very well be the topic we talk about here, that we do need a trusting, well-wishing friend where we can reveal our heart, where we can share our innermost struggles and fears. At least one person like that we all need to have in our life. Again, we don't share these things with just anybody, but there should be one person. He has to be senior. Actually, in this book, Sheltering Relationships, there's a whole chapter on all the qualities a person has to have to serve as a counselor or mentor. And this is very important to know. So we take shelter in the right person, and also as seniors, that we know what qualities to develop so we can give shelter to others. We actually have lost a lot of devotees over the 50 years of ISKCON because we did not understand the importance of mentorship. Just having a Diksha Guru, not enough guidance. Our gurus have hundreds and thousands of disciples. They cannot possibly know each and every person's situation in life. And very easily, I know, anybody here from Chowpatty? Yes. Places like Chowpatty, they have this whole mentorship program. But very easily, if you're not deeply understanding the need, this can just be an external formality. But deep in the heart, we are not taking shelter. Yes, we remain independent and we do our own decisions. And it's just an external formality because everybody has a mentor and because we have to have one and so on, So, yeah, it's a whole deep topic, and if we have at least one such person in our life, then this will not happen, that we keep things within, and then they, build up and explode and all this, So mentorship is the key. And so many issues can be solved, especially also in married life. Any marriage problem can be solved if husband and wife have a mentor and they're willing to work on themselves rather than pointing the finger at the other person. Yes. Everything can be solved if we are willing to take guidance and we work on ourselves and we are willing to accept corrections. Yes. Sometimes, especially when we become a little senior, then there's nobody there who can tell us anything. Right? Yes. Yes, but this should not be like that. Yes, we all need a person where we can reveal our heart. I mean, I'm with the third Diksha Guru. And no problem. They were always the right guru at the right time. I'm not a Prabhupada disciple, by the way. Sometimes people think that. No, I was Bhavananda disciple first, then Prabhu Vishnu, former Swami, now Prabhu. Then one more time I took reinitiation of Niranjana Swami. All the three gurus were the perfect gurus at that time. But I heard once a statement here in Mayapur in a Bhagavatam class that all those personalities who had to step down and could not maintain their position as sannyasi or guru, they had one thing in common: no sheltering relationships. Yes. Even on that level, we need that. Even in the Bhagavatam, Bharat Maharaj, that was his problem. He didn't have a mentor. Some well-wishing friend who taps him on the shoulder and says, "It's enough now with the deer. Why don't you go back to your sadhana?" Yes, yes. So that should be a warning to us all that we need to cultivate these sheltering relationships. Okay, so time is up. Thank you so much for your interest, your kind attention. If you want to check out the books there, then please be there and I'll be there also. Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveda Bhaktavinda ki, Gaura Premanandi, Hare Krishna.